Jamal Soul, Moving Still. Thank you for joining me today. I've been wanting to have a chat with you for some time now. I was introduced to your music through the Da Disco Lads, and we connected earlier this year by booking you for a special guest mix on Middle Beast Frequencies, which is coming up soon. After reading about you and learning more about you, I got excited about inviting you onto the podcast.
Thanks, James. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to be on the show. And actually, I've been wanting to be on your show after hearing a couple of your shows. So it's actually quite nice to be invited. And also, I am excited for that guest mix as well.
Good to hear. You have described that there have been many moments that you would consider turning points. There's never really just one crossroads in our lives. One significant turning point is creating Moving Still's creative and cultural identity with using and applying meditation and creating music. Tell me more about this time in your life and how this continues to support and shape you now.
Yeah, it's as I said, there's so many moments that kind of, pull me into music. And I think probably around 6 years ago, I had only started my PhD. And, I was getting into production. I wasn't really that good. I kind of was just, starting off. I'd only kind of got to grips of how Ableton works, but I wasn't very good at creating lots of different songs. And PhD life was super, super stressful. When I think back at it, it's like a moment of reflection of, how much has changed since then. And I used to use music pretty much as an outlet, pretty much a de-stressor, because the hours in the lab were they were so long, and whatever breaks I used to have, I used to just sit on the laptop and make a small beat, even if it was a 1 minute or 2 minute song. And it was more so just to get it out and just get that stress out. And I use it for many reasons. It kind of felt good to just, write a song per day. And also I wasn't tied to genre. I still hadn't figured out what my signature was. It was kind of nice to be able to delve into loads of different genres and, make stuff in genres that I loved. So whether it was disco or Arabic inspired disco or hip hop or bass, it was just kind of amalgamation of everything I liked. And I guess at the time I was kind of struggling mentally during the PhD as well. So my boss at the time, who was my supervisor, her partner was actually, he was a therapist. And he kind of introduced me to meditation. And I was the type of person that literally would look at meditation and think, this is for hippies. And that was the kind of idea that I had. That was the perception I had of meditation. And he sat down in a room with me. And I remember him sitting with me and just guiding me through it. And I was actually kind of pretty impressed of the understanding of what meditation was. I used to think that, it was all about relaxation, and actually it was completely the opposite of that. It's actually about focusing and teaching yourself how to concentrate on a specific task and using kind of your different breathing techniques to kind of, focus. And I think I actually started doing that on public transport. So I sit on the train, the Lewis, which is a tram over here in Ireland, and I would sit there and everybody would think I was asleep, but I was actually meditating in that journey. And I got very good at it, and it actually really helped me space out time between doing lab work, but also at the same time make music, because I had better concentration. And I still use that today. It's pretty much my ritual from day to day. And it definitely has helped me kind of musically and career-wise, because I can separate and create lots of space for myself. And yeah, it's been an incredible journey. I think that moment in time is a really big indication of how important it is to look after your mental health and how it can be applied to your life day to day, whether it's music or your day-to-day job or with your family. It's something that I would never change. And I'm very, very glad and thankful to my boss, really, and her partner for actually introducing me to it.
So Moving Still came from meditation?
I'd say not exactly. So I started Moving Still prior to learning about meditation.
Okay.
And I was trying to come up with a name that didn't signify what kind of genre of music I was making. And the reason why I picked it was actually kind of a fascination I had with jellyfish as a kind of a reminder of Jeddah in Saudi.
Right.
because I used to see them we used to spend a lot of time at the beach when I lived over in Saudi, in Jeddah, and obviously you would always encounter some jellyfish. And I always had this fascination of like how beautiful but deadly those animals are as a species. So I used to find that the beauty of it is that they move, but they look very still. And kind of at the time, it had turned out that was actually kind of an oxymoron. And I kind of liked the name of it because the music that I was writing at that specific time was kind of ambient, kind of housey, and then also some signatures of Arabic inspiration in there as well. And it just kind of fit. And as time goes by, I feel like the name even fits even more again. And I'm kind of thankful because, it's funny because you can pick a name and it could end up being absolutely terrible.
Well, it's a great name, and it like I think it speaks so many different kind of tones. Now, a slow and steady approach to your creative process and music projects has really shown you a new way of being since COVID, and how you want to continue. Meditation, cold showers, and exercise seem to be key pillars to creating that baseline for yourself. Love to learn more about this, how you're balancing your other career, family, and whatever else you're doing to maintain and sustain this approach in your work and lifestyle.
Yeah, I guess I think firstly, meditation is quite a vital part of my day. I've basically been meditating for the last, I'd say, 5 years now.
Okay.
And I think because I know to put time aside to do meditation, then it also allows me to put time aside to do music. And I can quickly switch between tasks I want to do. So instead of procrastinating on trying to think of a task and never getting around to doing it, I've got very good at just going, right, I need to get this done. It's going to get done now. And I apply that in my work, and it kind of helps the balance of knowing if I'm going to be too tired to do something, and being aware of your kind of emotions to be able to go, well, today is not the day. I'm not going to force myself. And it kind of helps that whole process, because then what happens is, then because I use meditation, then I think it's really important to exercise. And actually, I had a really terrible injury a few years back that kind of really woke me up a bit in terms of exercise. I had damaged my back doing some bouldering, and it actually frightened me because I wasn't able to walk for the gist of 2 weeks. And I think from there, it kind of woke me up that I don't have to like go to the gym and lift like a huge amount of weights and be like, yeah. It was more so that it was just to kind of look after myself in terms of my core. And I think, breathing exercises, they all fit into the same category. And COVID actually was like, being in the pandemic was kind of my introduction to cold showers, because I had heard really fascinating things in terms of the research and the data that's out there in terms of cold showers and your nervous system, and how it affects your nervous system, how it then has a relationship with your immune system. And as an immunologist, I always thought that whole area was super fascinating, because, I had read all the research in terms of meditation by itself, but it turns out that meditation and cold showers had like a significant effect on your mental well-being and also on your immune system. So I was just like, I'll give it a shot. And I have to say, the first 10 seconds of being in a cold shower, I was just like, I'll never do this again. I'm not going to lie, the water over here
it must be so cold in Dublin, man.
Yeah, man. It's freezing. It's freezing. And it would frighten you, because you have this fight or flight response. It's basically like an injection of adrenaline.
Yeah.
And your body just goes, I need to get out of here because I feel like I'm going to die. So I actually feel like the only way to describe it, if you give yourself this tiny bit of adrenaline every day, it's nearly like the effects that you get when you're anxious. So you're getting this your body response to fight or flight actually adapts over time. So after 2 weeks, my response to the cold shower was kind of nearly like, it didn't even bother me. I know it's cold, but it wasn't actually affecting me.
Yep.
And it actually over time, it meant that certain triggers that would trigger you anxiety wise actually wasn't as potent. You kind of get hit by it and you have a better reaction time. It was like you could see it in slow motion. So overall, I think that balance was kind of helping me to know whether I was stressing myself out with music or am I keeping it as still enjoying the love of it. So if I feel too stressed about it, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
And it was kind of a nice relationship. And I think at the moment, it's been nice being on that journey to learn about myself mentally, but also learning of what tasks I can and can't do. And I've always had kind of an issue with music where I come across writer's block and it stretches for 3 months at a time. And yeah, I guess I had to learn how to kind of cope with that. And also learn that it's not just important that if you can't write music, just don't write music and not force it. And it actually made me better at creating new stuff. And there was always that battle being like, how do I beat myself in my own music? And that was something that I had to kind of maybe learn not to prioritize, because even though you want to be your own music, and I think there's always this, society makes you feel that you have to write music that's going to be the best banger of all time. And sometimes you need to kind of not do that, because you end up trying to beat yourself and being competitive with yourself. And sometimes that's mentally draining.
Yep.
Where if you just write music and you enjoy it, that means you don't have this forced feeling to have to, achieve what's, expected of you in society. And I think that balance is super important, I think.
Yeah. And I find that as a philosophy or a way of, shedding in all areas, not just in a creative process, but being able to kind of break down these kind of paradigms that we instill in ourselves over time, from expectations, from family, society. And I think meditation really helps you able to put all this stuff under a microscope and then learn how to shed that and break them down and being able to pull through. So those three pillars are what you use to maintain and sustain. So you're pretty much able, and that helps you stay in this sort of slow pace. I can totally relate to that.
Kind of like staying very neutral, not being super reactive to anything. Like even sometimes it's a difficult thing to do, and sometimes I like it doesn't always work. It depends on your day. You're not going to always have a good day, and you can't always be happy either. Of course. And I think it's so important to remember that the days are going to be different, but it just means that not everything is going to last forever. And I think one thing that I've learned is that even when something super exciting happens, I try not to overly react towards it, because I think what happens is, just say for example, if somebody was to react that something they got asked to do, I'd say this interview, for example, right? And it just happens to be that I got super excited about it, and you say pull the plug. It means that my reaction towards it is going to be that I'm going to be pretty upset about it. But if you go in neutral about it, it means that if it gets plugged, if you unplug it, it just means that you're not going to feel as down about it. And keeping that momentum means that you're kind of just, you're not too high, but you're not too low. You're always going to be kind of riding a really, really, a slow wave. And I think it's a nice attitude to have, but it doesn't always work. You'll have good days and bad days. Of course, but that's what I try to do anyway, James.
No, of course. And we can't control like the things around us that we can't always, but it is, I think the more and more we practice this approach, the more and more it becomes a way of being that you're able to adapt to those difficult moments when they do come, because they're going to happen. Like they're going to happen. Yeah, exactly. Now, you work with a bunch of tastemaking labels. You've and yet you still hold your artistic freedom. Is working with so many labels part of your approach to that like artistic freedom identity? Like, is that like at the same time? And how do you maintain that? Like, how were you able to kind of keep those relationships with all the labels and your artistic freedom?
I think it never really first started off like that. I didn't have, I guess, an agenda to think of, how many labels did I want to be on. It actually just kind of happened by itself. Really, it was quite organic. Nail Shop were the first to kind of approach me, and I actually know Al Morris, who is the founder of Nail Shop, and we know each other from mutual friends, and he's a good pal of mine. And I had been wanting to be on his label for actually some time, and it was actually really interesting because the songs I had written to that label was specifically kind of some housey bits, nearly disco with a small hint of Arabic inspired stuff. And actually around that time I had injured my back and I was on like pretty high tramadol. It was excruciating pain. But I wrote one song during that time, while I had my back injury, and he basically flipped the entire EP and we made that the A1. And from there, then I got introduced to Star Disco, and it just seemed like I kind of had this momentum that I could create edits, and I also then had my original stuff. So it felt that I actually had the freedom to kind of have fun with edits, but also then be really personal with my original music. And I think it's a really fun way to be because edits for me are always just going to be fun. They're just a DJ tool. They're out there to kind of to have fun with, because I find edits really really meditative because the whole chopping process, layering drums, so and then writing original music is slightly personal because I'm writing it with a concept in mind. And so really with approaching labels, I have been quite privileged that labels have been approaching me, where for a long time I was approaching labels and with emailing and not understanding how to go about it, you don't get any responses. So it actually panned out quite nice because now I kind of like the idea of not being fully tagged to a specific label and just being able to write music, and it just happens to be signed to the music itself being signed to a particular label. And it just means that I feel like that you grow a lot more, and you don't have to be stuck to a genre or a style of music when you're free to be on whatever labels, because you'll start to create things that you think that will suit that particular label, or vice versa. The label might think that they want to move forward with a different type of music, and then they will come and get you to be on that label. And I do like that process because it helps me to grow as an artist and makes my music creation different each time. And with the last three EPs, which is Nail Shop, Orange Tree, and Jive Hive, which are originals, I find that every EP just sounds entirely different. There is the signature, but it doesn't sound exactly the same. And I think that for me is quite fun because it challenges me each time to how do I write something that's different from that, but also still kind of holding on to the core of what moving still is. But yeah, it's a really fun process, and I kind of like that the momentum. Now, don't get me wrong, if I get approached by this like unreal label, maybe things will change. But I do like the process because actually with the labels I've worked with so far, they've all been super great, and it's been a fantastic experience. They've got me to really push myself, because the feedback that you get from labels are things that you won't even think of yourself, whether it's like song structure, or did you try doing this, or did you try doing that. And it just really opens your mind, like, especially if you like, the main thing is not to take it to heart that they're like criticizing you, but more so that this is a learning curve. And if you want to be good, then just like take the feedback but obviously be confident of what you do too. And I think it's, if you have that attitude, then you can learn from it, but you can also say, wait, hold up, you're actually changing this song entirely. And now it's not the song that I wrote.
Yeah.
And I think it's always it's a balance between what the label wants, but what you want as well. And I think maybe as an artist, when you start off, you kind of just want to go, well, I'll do whatever you say. And I think whereas you get a bit better at it, and you learn from all the different experiences, you start to kind of know that, look, this is how the song is, and you're willing to change a few different things, but not structurally different, because
Yes.
then it just becomes the label song and no longer your song. Do you know what I mean?
Well, yeah. Look, kudos to you. That I mean, these are all quite, you know, significant labels. They're doing some cool stuff. How did the relationship with Dardisco come about? Because you guys are pretty much like, your roots are from very similar parts of the world, being neighbors. You know, Bahrain and Saudi. Is that? Do you guys know each other from the past? Like, how did you meet Vish and Mazen?
It's actually such a funny story.
Yeah.
So Dardisco, I actually don't know them from back home.
Right.
But we seem, from talking to the guys, and Vish and Mazen are super nice guys.
Yeah.
And we've been talking for the last, like, I don't know, now 3 or 4 years. And it's been an incredible journey with the guys. But how I came across them was actually they were booked to come and play in Dublin. And I think they had reached out to one of the promoters here who runs a night called Woma Beam. And they were ready to play. And basically I think it was the prior gig I had supported Habibi Funk. So I think then Dardisco were then booked for the following gig because they played kind of Arabic music, and they were on the lineup as well. And from my first gig for Woma Beam, which is Habibi Funk and myself, I played the original of Sari Sawas, Basis Minni. And I played it to a room of, which I was quite thankful about, is that the majority of the crowd were like 80% people from the Swan area. So it just meant that they actually recognized the song. So I basically done my first ever wheel up of a debka of Sari Sawas, and everybody went literally mental. People screaming down the back of the room, chanting. And to be honest, I knew there was something missing in that song. And because some of the songs that were written from the Swan region, like Syria, and some of the Debka songs, the mixes of those songs aren't like made for club music. So I just wanted to give it a small, extra kind of layer on it, just to kind of help me as a DJ, but also as a DJ tool for everybody else.
Yep.
And I actually put it out on a magazine called District Magazine. And because Dardisco obviously heard that it was going out, they had reached out to me straight away saying, hey, like, we've heard about this. We're going to be playing with you next month. How do you feel about signing it? And Vish got on the call with me, and we spoke on the phone. And I was like, yeah, if you want to take it, like, go for it. And that was pretty much the relationship start from that point onwards. And then I met the guys. I think it was a November gig, and me and Vish, like, we hung out first, and then Mazen came the following day, and then it was pretty much like it was history from there. We ended up creating a WhatsApp group, and we share music on it all the time. And yeah, it was just kind of that relationship pretty much started there. And we ended up realizing we actually had very, very similar backgrounds in terms of the music we listened to when we were younger. Like, I was a huge metal fan when I was a kid, and they were as well. So and we were also, similarly, they were in bands, I was in bands. And I think it just goes to show that, like, the whole idea of living in the Middle East, and then also then moving out as being the Arab diaspora, and just living abroad, actually shows you that there is this kind of connection where you start to miss home and the nostalgia of, like, old music, of how that means to you. So you end up kind of reconnecting with stuff like that, because when I was a young kid, I used to think all this music was super pop, and I don't think I was, like, superly interested in it when I was a kid. But it does stick with you, and somehow that when you get older, you somehow have this, like, fascination of, like, how those songs were created. And yeah, I guess it's like all brings you back for this this missing of home. And for me, like, home is both here in Dublin, but also home is also Jeddah. So it always has this connection. So when I write a lot of my music, a lot of it is like kind of like a love letter to Jeddah. And I think it's quite a nice relationship.
Yeah.
But yeah, since then I've had 3 releases with the guys, and It's I don't think I don't think any of us really thought how it would end up, but I guess that's the law of attraction, isn't it? Like,
Well, I mean, both you guys, like the boys and yourself, have uh, really been part of this a new kind of movement that's emerged in the last couple of years, I'd say, and it seems like it's beginning of some good times. It looks like
I
it.
think, like what I think was really important for us is that we always hope. I guess we always hope, especially myself. I always hope that it would resonate with people who live abroad who have this, that they where they miss home and they want this kind of connection to home. And it's actually incredible that it firstly reached people from across Europe and the Americas and Australia and Asia, but then it means even that 10 times more when it actually resonates to people in your homeland, like
Yeah,
people in
yeah,
Jeddah. I like, because there's always this weird thing, and I don't know how, if you kind of felt that same way, but I feel like when you live in the Middle East, there's this craving for wanting to listen to music that's foreign to you. So you listen to like stuff that's outside of the country that you're in, and then once you're in that, so for the music that's already there, sometimes it's hard to be totally into it. And I don't know if that has changed now. That dynamic is that now that music is a bit more freer, and you kind of listen to everything, and there's no need for wanting to listen to something that's so foreign, or it's all just amalgamation of everything that you like. And I
yeah.
feel like, Saudi in general is doing incredible things in terms of the music they're putting out and the kind of confidence in the local talent. It's incredible to watch, I have to
Yep.
say.
Yep. Well, look, I mean, Saudi many of many of the countries in the region, there's been such a significant in the last, like in these last recent years. Being based over there for 10 years, I've witnessed it myself, like this whole like emerging and this scene just becoming like growing, and it's really refreshing. And there's been a shift, like there's been this sort of shift in like locally, the embracing of the culture of the many different cultures within the region. Because initially when I was there, it was all about, well, Western culture, let's bring in the Western culture. And now it's like, no, let's let's really push what we've got here to the rest of the world. And I'm seeing that more and more, happening now. And I think it's a great thing. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to the next 10 years. Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
think it's an incredible movement, and I think it's something I've discussed with some of my Irish friends that are ethnically Irish, and I think there's something really incredible about the Arabic music scene in general is super tight. Everybody knows everybody. Everybody wants to support everybody, and weirdly enough, just because it's all Arabic music, it actually is. Everybody has a distinct style. Whether it's like actually you're writing deep house, or if you're writing disco, or you have like a different style or whatever. It's quite prominent. You can hear what, like, say for example, DJ Pleed, he has a very unique sound. What's her name? Oh God, Fatima Al
Kadiri.
Qadari, Qadiri, yeah, yeah.
Yes, yes.
She has a very unique sound as well,
Yeah, yeah,
and it's just incredible to see that everybody has these like individual sounds, even within, like, like, I think people always have this perception that it's going to be just all sounding the same, but it actually shows you that there's different styles and signatures that are incredible. And I guess in a sense, I like being able to kind of be a fly on the wall to what's happening in Saudi and seeing friends and doing so well, and the confidence in the talent that's over there. It really shows that it's starting to really build up. And I think a lot of it is down to how people have now kind of separated what used to be that, culture was like tagged to religion and all this kind of stuff. And now it's kind of that separation really shows that, like, there is a whole section there. There's like food, there's like
Yep.
there's music,
Yep.
there's like, you know, how people interact to each other. And then that separation to religion kind of really brings out what people have been like kind of practicing over the last, like, I don't know how many years. And it is really fascinating to see people do so well and see festivals emerge. And, you know, it's something that like, I actually can't wait to go back because it's been a while.
Yep.
And, you know, I've talked to Mohammed about this before, and I'm quite excited to come back and play and do a gig. And, you know, the issue was the last time I went there was like August 2019, and
Yes.
it was like the middle of Hajj. So, you know, everything was like closed, and, you know, people were busy with family. So I actually came at like probably the worst time to try do something fun in that kind of sense. But I am excited to go back again and actually like spend a bit of time there. So yeah, it's just
Well,
incredible to see.
I think the guys are going to be very excited to have you when the time's right. You never know; it might be sooner than you think.
Yeah, like honestly, like it's just been like I've actually been quite lucky. How I got introduced to like that entire crew was basically through my sister's husband's sister. She added me to like the WhatsApp group of all these people, and obviously like it was kind of like I suppose embarrassing at the start, being like, hey, this is this guy who's Saudi who lives in Dublin, and he also does music too, and just like just seeing how things are going there and the music that people are listening to over there, and you can see the change. Like honestly, like the music that everybody listens to now is that it's everybody just listens to everything, and
Yeah,
it's funny
yeah.
how like we live in two different countries and yet we're still listening to the same thing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's definitely amazing talent coming out from that part of the world, and yeah. So you have a new exciting new release that's coming out in October. What's it? What are you able to share a bit about that? A bit about the title?
Yeah, yeah. So I have two releases coming out. One that's kind of next week, and that's with
Yes,
Disco Stan.
yes.
And then the one in October is actually my first ever self-release. I have been kind of wanting to do this for actually some time, and I just never got the opportunity to do it. And I also wanted to kind of learn about the whole, you know, PR side of things, getting stuff mastered, and, you know, and just really understand that whole process, because a lot of the time when you're signed to a label, they kind of do all that. So you don't really know what the hell is going on, and you don't know how it's being done. And I always kind of felt that it's like, I really want to do this. And the songs that I picked for that were super personal songs, and I really wanted to do something with it and also do it for a charity. So the name of the EP is going to be Oodie Bangers Volume 1. And the reason I call that is I have like a total obsession with oud as a fragrance. So I always think that, and some of my friends always know that if I play kind of an Arabic inspired song, they said, "Oh, that sounds really oody." So the name kind of came from that. There are basically three of my favorite Egyptian artists, and it was all kind of by accident as well. It wasn't that I had this idea and then I knew exactly which songs. I started, I think, with one of the songs, and then I realized that, you know, I could actually try to create this whole EP and delving into my favorite Egyptian tracks. And yeah, the entire project is in collaboration with two Lebanese artists who have worked with the graphics. And if you kind of see behind me, that's the graphics there in the back.
Right on. That
So,
looks so familiar. The style there looks
I think
familiar. Who's the artist?
so. Yeah, Tracy Shahawan.
Johan.
So
Okay.
she's a Lebanese illustrator, cartoonist, and she honestly makes the dopest art I've ever seen in my entire life.
Has she worked with the Beirut Groove Collective?
She has.
Yes, that's where I've seen her work. Right,
Yeah.
That's why it looks familiar.
I've been following her for some time, and
Right.
when I started thinking about this project, the three artists that I picked for the EP was Hamid Ash'ari, because basically Hamid Ash'ari's proteges One is Sheb Arab, and the other one is his brother Mejdi, that people don't really know about, and then Simone. And the three of them would have kind of worked alongside each other at some point. There's no like evidence of this, but I would have expected that they would have crossed paths. So I always had this image of them kind of meeting up in Cairo at some cabin, smoking shisha and maybe drinking some wine. I don't know. I always had this kind of image of them together. And I brought this idea to Tracy, hoping that she'd want to work with me. And yeah, she was really into the idea, and she just created this like crazy artwork. And actually, it completely exceeded my whole expectation of what she was going to bring to the table. And because this EP is basically kind of a freebie, it's
so this isn't the edits that's coming on Disco Stand. This is
this is my self-release.
Your self-released EP, and that you didn't. Which label is that coming out on?
So because it's a self-release, it's just going to be on my Bandcamp.
Oh, got it. Okay, got it. Excellent.
So
very exciting.
So yeah, working with Tracy, kind of when she showed me the artwork, I was like, "There's no way I can just put this digitally. This is like, because it's a free edit. I was like, I need to print this. So in collaboration with her, we're going to print it at a studio in Dublin, and the money that's raised from it is going to go to profits. The profits raised is going to go to a Lebanese charity.
Fantastic.
And I'm quite excited about it because, the work that I put into it, and, working with Tracy, and also I worked with another Lebanese artist, Carla, who actually done a promo video for me. So it actually all tied in together, and I'm super excited for that. And then I have Disco Stand next week, which I'm so excited for that too.
Amazing.
Disco Stan invited me, and Nerman invited me to edit two of Nerman's tracks. Nerman is a Pakistani-British artist who put out a release back in '84, and it got reissued last year. And they invited me to kind of edit two of their songs, and it's actually been really nice to be invited to a culture that isn't mine, and that invitation is so valuable, because I wouldn't feel comfortable to do an edit that's outside of my culture unless there's something that I've, learned about the artist, or collaborated with the original artist, or that the label are somehow tied to that culture. And to be invited is actually kind of an honor as well.
Yeah.
So that's out next week, and I'm so excited because, getting the consent and the feedback from the original artist is like something that I've always wanted, and I think it's something that I'm really, really like quite proud of.
Fantastic.
And again, Disco Stan, great label. And, Arshia has been like an incredible person to work with as a label owner. And yeah, it's just been a fascinating journey. And I think, to be honest, this year has just been like a complete learning curve. And yeah, I'm quite happy with the releases, but I'm also trying to slow myself down as well.
Well, look, that's moving still, right?
Yeah. Trying to like not kind of get carried away. It's so hard to slow down. I must say, it's something that I always try to like put like a stop button on myself, to just go, right, I'm just not going to do anything for a while.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I'm in a quite privileged position that I could, write music and have my day-to-day job, and also have stuff so spaced out that I don't have to worry for a while that, if I have writer's block, I actually can afford to have writer's block.
Yeah.
Where I can completely understand that if people that haven't been able to write anything during this whole time. So
is it something that you like, if it becomes a more prominent thing for you with the music, will that lead to moving away from being an immunologist? Have you reached that point yet? Have you reached that point yet?
It's a super good question. I guess like it's about paying the bills, isn't it? Like, so if it ever came to that, absolutely, it would be absolutely fascinating. But it'd be fascinating to be able to do that if that ever came about. But there's something that I've always like I think because I have such a fascination with science, it also then has this separation of me treating music as generally a hobby, and it means that I'm super passionate, and I guess there's always this fear of if it became your career, will you be as passionate about it and stuff like that, and so I'm probably fearful of the idea of it, but yeah, I'd play with it. I'd play with it. Like if it was something that was possible, yeah,
Something,
yeah, you know, like
something to meditate more on.
100%. Like I think one of the things I love about music is being able to travel, and that's something I haven't had the luxury of being able to do because of it being too costly and stuff like that. So being able to do that now is definitely something that has like really, really like it's a great experience, and just being able to go to different countries and see different people and running into like other fellow Arabs in different countries and them approaching you. It's an amazing experience. So yeah, I'd play with it. If the opportunity was there, I'd play with it.
Look, you're in Dublin, and which makes it a lot easier to move around in Europe, in particular, for when festival season's on, and I guess maybe there you will be up, and when things open up a bit more, you'll be able to move a lot more fluidly and more around more. And why don't you tell the listeners when the releases are coming and where they can hear them, and where they can hear and read more about you?
Okay, so for the Disco Stand, that's going to be released on the 24th of September, which is next Friday. And then prior to that, I have two premieres coming out on two really lovely magazines that I can't share that quite yet, but you can probably hear it through my Instagram at Moving Zero Still, and then I'm quite excited about that, and it will probably be on my SoundCloud as well, and that's going to be released on Disco Stan, and you can follow Disco Stan on their Instagram and their SoundCloud. And then in regards to my self-release, that will be pretty much all over my Instagram and probably all over my SoundCloud. And I'm hoping to get a good home for them premiere wise. I'm still playing with the idea to see who is interested, and I have 4 weeks to do that. So the pressure is on. The pressure is on.
Jamal, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on Electronic Music Man today. It's been great chatting with you and getting to know you a bit more and learning about what you're up to and what you're doing. I'm looking forward to what's coming up next for you, and keep on doing what you're doing.
James, thank you so much for having me on the show. It was nice to have the chat as well.
Yeah, pleasure.
Cheers.
Take care. Bye-bye.